Our protagonist, a man of exceptional talent in swordsmanship, mastered every technique and skill with ease. There was nothing he couldn't learn, and no opponent who could escape his blade. Through relentless effort, he became unstoppable. After dropping out of high school, our boy dedicated 20 years to honing his skills with a knife, eventually becoming the finest swordsman in the country. In a bustling restaurant, the staff managed the crowd when suddenly, the chef's phone alarm catches their attention. A staff member mentions it, and the chef realizes he must have set it to vibrate. Seeing the notification, he briefly wonders if it's from the game he deleted earlier, assuming his phone is malfunctioning. At that moment, another staff member informs him that a guest has arrived. The chef instructs them to tell the guest he isn't available. However, Mr. Kim, the guest, doesn't wait. He walks into the kitchen himself, dismissing the chef's excuse as an obvious lie. Mr. Kim declares it's time to hear the answer he's come for. He believes he's given the chef enough time to consider the request, and it shouldn't be difficult for someone like our boy, who handles swords every day. Realizing he might have come off as insensitive, Mr. Kim opens a suitcase full of cash as a show of sincerity. He explains that he's offering an advance payment of $300 million if our boy can complete the task. However, the chef swiftly cuts through the meat, startling everyone. He firmly states that this is a kitchen where cleanliness is paramount, and there's no place for someone like Kim. Our boy orders Mr. Kim to leave. The guest becomes furious, exclaiming that a sword saint shouldn't be cutting fish in a place like this. In response, the chef grabs a kitchen knife, further intimidating Kim. As Kim retreats, he tells our boy that he's not giving up and will definitely return soon. After Mr. Kim and his guards depart, one of the staff members remarks that the chef was being offered $300 million. He adds that if it were him, he would have accepted the offer immediately and asks why our boy turned it down. The chef replies that all his life, he's only ever sliced fish heads with a knife. He knows nothing about being a thug. The staff member suggests that the chef could leverage his reputation as a sword master to intimidate people without actually harming anyone and still collect the money. With that, he could buy a house. Our boy replies that he would decline the offer, even if someone offered him billions. Curious about the notifications, the staff member wonders if the chef is dating someone. But our boy dismisses it, explaining it's just a stupid game, though he's too embarrassed to admit he's still playing Divine Protection. The boss calls for the cleaning guy, who leaves first, while our boy reflects on his past. He remembers how his family went bankrupt when he was young, forcing him to work tirelessly and focus his life solely on making money. His phone keeps ringing, with the frequency becoming excessive. He decides to reinstall the game, realizing that the characters have been invading the academy for years. He taps the notifications, and a prompt to touch the screen appears. Hearing the nostalgic soundtrack and seeing the female characters still as beautiful as before, he feels a wave of familiarity. To our boy's surprise, the mobile screen froze, and then suddenly, a bright light emerged from the phone. The same staff member from earlier calls out to him, saying the boss is asking for him. The staff member notices that the chef is gone and wonders why he left his phone behind. The boss calls again, and the staff member speculates that the chef might have gone to the restroom. Meanwhile, the phone screen shows the completion of the transfer. Upon seeing the game, our boy immediately recognizes it as a typical pay-to-win model with a standard auto-hunting system, just like countless mass-produced mobile games. No further explanation is needed. He originally played the game because he was captivated by the appearance of the female characters and got drawn into it. Now, he finds it ironic that after spending a fortune and playing through multiple cycles, he's neither a playable character nor an NPC. He's become a background character, whose whereabouts are completely unknown. Our boy has possessed this character, and in this new world, his name is Kongjiyama. While walking, he accidentally bumps into a woman, and they both apologize. He notices that the setting of Divine Protection M resembles Korea. The names, locations, and geography are only slightly altered, with a few minor character variations. Thanks to this, Kong adapts quickly. A whole year passes, and now he's living as a teenager, unsure whether this is real or just part of the game. For him, it's a life he can't fully enjoy, much like his previous one, until that fateful day arrives. Returning from school, his parents proudly address him as the great sword master Kong, calling him their pride. They see his acceptance letter, and embarrassed, our boy asks them to put it away. His parents, beaming with pride, say they've raised him well and can't stop feeling proud every time they look at the letter. As he starts sweating, they remind him that the entrance ceremony is tomorrow and ask if he's packed everything. Pushed by their excitement, he begins packing, realizing that his modest dream of living a normal life has been shattered once again. Everyone's joy makes it impossible for him to refuse. He had tried to avoid the ceremony several times but couldn't, leaving him already exhausted. While packing, our boy stumbles upon a family photo and wonders how the Kong he possessed managed to get accepted into such a prestigious school. He recalls how things unfolded and remembers his parents telling him that last year he manifested divine powers and took the entrance exam immediately. Shocked, he realizes that before he possessed Kong, the boy had already unlocked divine powers and passed the entrance exam for Hawk Academy. It dawns on him that his character is a genius. He begins to understand that divine powers are special abilities, similar to skills in a game, but not everyone possesses them. These powers typically manifest through genetics, and based on whether one has divine power, society is divided into 3 classes: the privileged, the commoners, and the poor. Hawk Academy, where Kong was admitted, was originally founded to preserve the power of the elite, though it was established under the guise of a hero's civilization. Today, it serves as an exclusive school for upper-class families. Recently, however, a system known as special admission was introduced for non-hero families, and the character our boy possesses was admitted as one of these special students. He also understands that heroes are essential because of the threat posed by the Demon King. Yet, despite all this, he knows this isn't reality. It's just a training ground preparing students for war. Our boy speaks aloud, saying, "Divine power," and a status window appears, still unfamiliar to him. He sees the divine power he's unlocked and notices a skill called painlessness, which has a 12-hour cooldown. He scoffs, calling it nonsense. Then, his attention shifts to the divine power granted to him upon possessing Kong, the blessing of the sword god. With such power, he assumes no one will dare challenge him. It's a divine ability he's never encountered in the game before, and the name contrasts sharply with its overly simple effect. The power allows him to slash anything he cuts, but he finds it absurd to label such an obvious trait as a divine power. What feels even more out of place is the activation condition. His sword must be exactly 30 centimeters in length and less than 5 centimeters in width. He realizes it's the precise size of a sashimi knife, leaving him completely baffled. As the absurdity of it all sinks in, our boy concludes once again that life rarely goes the way he expects. He double-checks his packing and realizes he forgot his equipment. Our boy knows that even the lowest-grade E-rank equipment costs tens of millions, while average seating costs hundreds of millions. So, A and S-rank items must be treasures in themselves. He understands that the tuition alone is exorbitant, and he doesn't want to spend more money on something he's being forced into. However, since the academy requires equipment, he has to bring something or risk making a bad impression on his first day. With that in mind, he decides to head to Daixo to purchase a weapon. His thoughts are interrupted by a memory of his first master, who insisted on using a Japanese sashimi knife worth over 100 million. Suddenly, our boy finds himself thinking about that old man again, recalling his words, "A true master never blames their equipment." The next day, dressed in his uniform and entering the academy, someone questions whether the equipment he's carrying really belongs to him. During the entrance ceremony and the equipment inspection, he pulls out the sashimi knife as his weapon. Every year, the upper-class students play pranks to assert dominance from the start, and the student inspecting him asks if our boy thinks the academy is a joke, seriously questioning his decision to use a kitchen knife for the class placement test. Our boy simply replies that it's his weapon and clarifies that he's a special admission student from a modest family. He explains that the tuition alone was already a huge burden on his parents, so he couldn't justify adding the cost of an expensive weapon on top of that. The instructor glances at the color of his name tag and understands that, for a student not from an upper-class background, the academy's fees would indeed be overwhelming. He feels it would be wrong for an institution supposedly promoting equal education to push away such a sincere student. Our boy adds one more thing. Blaming equipment is something only amateurs do. A master never blames their tools. The instructor finds it odd for a teenage boy to say something so profound, yet it feels as though he's already reached some kind of pinnacle in life. The weight of his eloquent words and his unyielding spirit convince the instructor that this boy is the real deal. He approves Kong Jiama's weapon. Grateful, our boy thanks him, while the students behind him recognize him as a special admission student. They whisper among themselves, wondering how someone like him ended up in such a prestigious academy. The instructor from earlier quickly tells them to be quiet, warning that after the evaluation, depending on their actions, he can either be their angel or their devil. Hearing this, our boy decides to step outside for a break. He finds a bench and reflects on how, even though he expected this, experiencing it firsthand is still unsettling. Kong has completed the equipment inspection and survived the entrance ceremony. Now, all that's left is the class placement exam. As he sits there, he contemplates his situation, realizing he's truly made it to this school, Awakens Academy, also known as the Hero Training School, where he will be studying for the next 3 years. He notes how different the academy looks compared to the graphics in the game. If he had to exaggerate, he'd say the academy is the size of a small town, which is impressive. Attending a school meant for the upper class feels surreal, especially since he had to drop out of high school due to family circumstances in his previous life. Soon, the class placement test is announced, and students are instructed to gather at the training hall by 1 p.m. He understands that while the entrance ceremony is over, the class placement test remains incredibly important. Since an exam is still an exam, he knows he must familiarize himself with the process. Looking at his knife, he realizes that ever since coming to this world, he hasn't had a reason to use it. He remembers his master's advice: never put the knife down, even for a single day. Even while you sleep, keep holding it. Kong feels as though he's unconsciously adopting yet another habit from his master. After 20 years of living by the knife, he wonders whether a 1-year break has dulled his skills. He removes the cover from the knife and finds it far better than he expected. Curious, he decides to test it by cutting a leaf. Suddenly, the system alerts him that the weapon has met the activation conditions, and the blessing of the sword god is activated. However, since both his physical body and the weapon are at too low a level, the system initiates suppression to synchronize with the user. Shocked, our boy can't believe that simply drawing the knife triggered the blessing to activate. As the synchronization completes, the system wishes him the blessing of the god. Before he can process this, extreme pain strikes his entire body, and he realizes that if this continues, he's going to die. Suddenly, he finds himself in a new space and, confused, questions where he is. Panicking, he throws the knife away, and instantly, the surroundings return to normal, bringing him back to reality. His body still throbs with pain, and while he understands the activation of divine power, he wonders if the chaos surrounding him is linked to the sword god's blessing. The backlash is unbearable, and although the divine power of painlessness offers some relief from mild soreness, it can't alleviate this kind of agony. Our boy realizes that using his skill in this manner is unsustainable if every activation brings such pain. At that moment, the system sends out a reminder for all students to gather at the hall immediately. He knows it's time for the test and, unwilling to leave the divine weapon lying on the ground, he reluctantly decides to pick it up, assuming the pain was only a consequence of the first activation. As soon as his fingers touch the blade, his body is racked with extreme pain once again. Meanwhile, at the training hall, all the students have gathered while parents chat about the exorbitant cost of admission. Suddenly, their attention shifts to Lord Clinge, the 7-star hero and descendant of Aaron Nibelung, as well as the direct disciple of the founding hero, Awakens. Known as the strongest human, Lord Clinge's presence commands the crowd, and everyone returns to their seats. The 7-star hero sage greets him and playfully remarks that it's been half a century since they last met. Despite the years, she hasn't begun dressing like an academy director, and turning 70 doesn't seem to have affected her much. She quips that every woman wants to remain beautiful until her last day and offers to use her blessings to make Siegfried look 10 years younger. Siegfried, however, dismisses her offer, pointing out that while she approaches 70, she still hasn't matured. adding that humans should prioritize their inner nature. With a mocking grin, she calls him an old, amused by the fact that he's just as rigid as he was 50 years ago. Siegfried, clearly irritated, does not hide his annoyance. Media, on the other hand, teasingly, she assumes his granddaughter must be quite beautiful, and they both realize the test is about to begin. Inside the training hall, our boy scans the room, noting that he is the only one with black hair. Someone mutters if he is the black-haired foreigner, as the earlier chatter echoes in Kang's mind. Suddenly, a striking girl enters the hall, capturing the attention of every student, including our boy. She is none other than Abel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor and the main heroine of the game. The sole reason our boy spent a fortune on it. The subspace was created by the ancestral hero Barol Joaquin, who established this reality alongside the Academy. It is a dimension separate from the real world, where pain and damage are real, but no consequences apply to reality since there is no interference from the outside world. Even taking down someone is overlooked. Siegfried and Media discuss the subspace battles, a school tradition, but this year, they are trying something new with a battle royale format. Participants will be split into groups of 10, and it will be a survival game with no restrictions on equipment. Siegfried notes that without restrictions, the privileged students will have an unfair advantage. Media explains that they had to compromise, as the Academy is funded mostly by the nobility, and she fought hard to introduce this new system. Inside the training hall, students admire the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor, while our boy is shocked to see that she is no longer just a 2D character. This feels completely different. He inwardly calls the students fools for trying to approach her, but admits he might have done the same if he didn't already know better. Since he has played the game before, he knows that Abel possesses the miracle blessing M, which ties her to the game's protagonist. Beautiful people always seem to have someone by their side, and he realizes that, as a special student, he doesn't belong in their league. He resolves to avoid getting involved, hoping to escape a noisy school life. He sets 3 principles for his future: to finish his studies without incident, secure a conventional job, and live a safe life. He recalls that the hero's job comes with a substantial salary, but just the act of drawing a knife left his body trembling. He's still shaking. Let the hero protect the world, he thinks, while he searches for a more comfortable job. The class assignment exam for the 783rd year at Awakens Academy begins, and a mini floating machine explains the rules. This year, as previously announced, it will be a battle royale among 10 randomly assigned cadets. First place will be assigned to the Star class, second and third places to the Dragon class, while 8th to 10th places will be assigned to the Ordinary class. Class assignments will be based entirely on these results, with no time limit. Our boy immediately recognizes the setup. It's just like the game. Knowing his goal is to remain ordinary, he decides not to waste time and aims to finish quickly. The subspace generation device activates, and the exam begins. He resolves to avoid drawing his knife unless absolutely necessary. After a while, the evaluations for Group 24 are completed and announced. Soon after, Group 47's evaluation is completed as well. While observing the results, Media mentions to Siegfried that his granddaughter, with the bloodline of Changseong and Jialgung, is sure to achieve significant results. She notes that a time of 7 minutes and 14 seconds is incredibly fast. Abel, wanting a fair assessment, used a C-rank weapon to achieve the record, placing her among the top 10 in Academy history, although she couldn't break Siegfried's own record. Siegfried acknowledges this is natural for someone of the Nibelung bloodline and prepares to leave, assuming the event is over. Media informs him that there is still one group left, but he dismisses it as unimportant. Just as he is about to leave, a sudden, strange sensation washes over everyone. Media questions whether Siegfried felt it as well, to which he responds that it is unbelievable. As they try to make sense of the situation, something suddenly falls from the sky. To their shock, they witness the sky itself break apart, and 2 students emerge from the subspace. The entire crowd is confused, but then another light shines, and a knife falls from the sky as well. Media quickly calls for medical staff to check the vitals of the cadets who have just appeared. One of the fallen students is our boy, and as he lies there, he accepts the results as inevitable, predetermined from the start. Earlier, the students in the last group began fighting each other, and our boy realizes with dread that he has been caught in a squad of death. He recognizes the infamous twins of malevolence, Mao Jun and Mao Shun, from the Iron King family. While these brothers possess immense talent and innate ability, they are also known for their brutal violence and boundless cruelty. Kong recalls that they deliberately toy with everyone for 30 minutes. Our boy is completely ignored by the twins, realizing he is so insignificant to them that he is not even worth their attention. Once the twins finish beating the other students, they ask each other how many remain. Jun states that it's all over, while Shun, surprised, notes that he took care of 4 students. Jun allows Shun to handle the last remaining girl, and Shun eagerly accepts. The girl trembles in fear as she watches them approach. Our boy feels a surge of frustration as he notices that the girl is already panicked and seemingly lacks the will to fight. Shun, seeing her fear, comments that she is just his type. Just as Shun is about to attack the frightened girl, our boy can no longer remain silent. He screams, questioning why they are going so far when it's just subspace, calling them psychopaths for their cruelty. Without fully realizing it, he steps into the chaos. The twins turn their attention to him, noticing his special student tag. They call him a lowlife, and Shun decides to deal with him personally. Jun instructs his brother to take down anyone who dares to disrespect them. Our boy, panicking, wonders what he should do. He considers using his blessing of painlessness, but knows that avoiding pain for just 30 seconds won't help against opponents who have been brutalizing their classmates for 30 minutes. Spotting a sword, Kong hesitates, aware that if he grabs it, the blessing will activate. He recalls the intense pain he felt earlier when using the blade. He had just set out principles for an ordinary, uneventful life. Yet not half a day has passed, and he is already on the verge of breaking them. The twins notice him holding the knife and taunt him, asking if he is mocking them. The terrified girl watches, worried for him, as Shun prepares to finish Kong off painlessly, finding him amusing. He charges at Kong headfirst, ready to smash him. Our boy realizes he can't afford to be picky now. He decides to use the blessing of painlessness for 30 seconds, hoping it will buy him some time. As he takes a fighting stance, the blessing of the sword god activates. His plan is to endure the pain caused by the blessing while fending off Shun. Shun scoffs, asking what a pathetic knife could possibly do. Kong knows that if he doesn't finish off his enemy quickly, he will be the one to die. He feels the absurdity of holding a sashimi knife, intended for cutting fish. He recalls his boss once saying that it's merely a cinematic trope. Such knives would never work against people, even if wielded by a god. Yet, he remembers a skill. If he strikes, it will certainly slash the enemy. As Shun closes in, Kong swiftly slashes with the knife, injuring the bully's arm in one decisive strike. The battle concludes in an instant. In his previous life, he recalls asking his boss why gangsters use sashimi knives. The boss clarifies that he should not refer to him as boss, but rather as master, and questions why our boy is curious about this. He remembers that his first master was a former thug who, as an act of atonement, cut off one of his wrists and later opened a sashimi restaurant, stating that he wanted to bring joy to others with his knife skills. Our boy recalls his master's skills being genuinely impressive and asks why gangsters in movies always wield sashimi knives, wondering if it is the same in real life. His master responds that someone with a fair amount of knife experience should not be asking such questions. Our boy explains that if someone is stabbed with a wide chef's knife, the skin will immediately contract, potentially making it difficult to withdraw. In contrast, a sashimi knife is too narrow, allowing it to stab multiple times and be easily retracted. However, there is no need for stabbing, as it is primarily used for slicing fish. He questions why he cannot do the same with people. His master, annoyed, explains that fish lie flat, and if they were standing, he wouldn't even be able to slice a piece of bread in one go. Our boy is disappointed because in manga, it always looks like a clean slice every time. He assumes his boss simply lacks the skill, but his boss, angered, insists on being called master, and makes it clear that even if the god of knives appeared, it still wouldn't work. In the present moment, our boy instantly takes down Shun, surprising everyone. The bully screams in extreme pain, telling Kong to stay away as he tries to run, begging his brother for help. He cries out in agony, demanding his older brother save him. However, our boy shows no mercy and finishes him off with a single decisive strike. Shocked by what he's seeing, Jun tries to calm himself, reminding himself that it's just a void space and his brother isn't truly dead. Even though this is true, he can't help but wonder what's wrong with Kong. It seems as though our boy has used the knife to take down someone for the first time. Jun's breathing becomes ragged as he questions whether his brother's defeat was just a coincidence. Growing more cautious, especially because of that knife, he decides his brother had been too reckless. Gripping his weapon with both hands, Jun amplifies both his defense and jumping power. He prepares to face our boy, activating all three of his blessings simultaneously. Confident in his rank blessings, privileges that commoners could only dream of, Jun believes his victory is certain, unlike his careless little brother. Meanwhile, Kong calmly counts down the 30 seconds of his blessing. As Jun leaps forward to attack, he realizes that Kong is just standing still. Determined to take him down, Jun closes in, but in an instant, our boy uses his blessing, defeating Jun before he can even land a blow. Jun falls to the floor, defeated in the subspace. Though our boy manages to win the fight, the 30 seconds of his blessing soon expire, and the overwhelming pain returns, causing him to lose consciousness. When Kong finally wakes up, he finds himself in a hospital bed. As he rises, someone nearby alerts the others, announcing that the student has regained consciousness. Our boy sees a face he hasn't encountered in person before but immediately recognizes it. The man who defeated the Demon Lord's 6th Legion commander 50 years ago. It is none other than Siegfried, one of the 2 7-star heroes and the strongest human alive. Alongside him is Media, the head sage of the academy. They ask our boy about his health. Confused, he wonders why these figures of such importance are here, but they urge him to introduce himself. Siegfried gets straight to the point, questioning Kong about his actions during the exam and the strange sensation that everyone felt earlier. Kong realizes it wasn't just his imagination, it was indeed him. Noticing Siegfried's cautious demeanor, Kong understands that being marked by such a powerful individual is never a good thing. When asked to explain himself, Kong says that although it was a pocket dimension, he believed the actions of the others went too far. However, he acknowledges that his response may have been excessive and is prepared to accept any punishment without complaint. Media, with a teasing tone, questions why Siegfried is treating a student so seriously. She informs our boy that while he was unconscious, it was Siegfried who cleared his blocked blood vessels. With a playful smile, she adds that people tend to get more stubborn with age. Siegfried becomes visibly embarrassed and asks why Media is bringing that up. Our boy then realizes that this is why his body feels as light as a feather. Media explains that while he was unconscious, they reviewed the footage of what happened in the subspace, including the moment when he threw himself to protect a beautiful female student. Playfully, she calls him the prince she's always dreamed of and starts flirting with him, while the old man, Siegfried, chides her to show some dignity. She reassures Kong that no issues will arise from his actions and mentions that the Mao twins only got into the academy by currying favor with the elders, implying they got what they deserved. Our boy feels relieved, knowing he won't have to deal with them at school anymore. Media then reveals that they both came to inform him that he is the top scorer, a revelation that surprises him. Both Siegfried and Media congratulate him, but our boy is left in confusion, realizing that on the very first day, he has already broken all of the principles he set for himself. The scene shifts to an office in the academy, where Media sighs and states that she has been the head of the academy for nearly 20 years, and this is the first time something like this has ever happened. The scene then flashes back to a few moments earlier, where our boy tells Sieg and Media that he doesn't like it. Both Sieg and Media are shocked to hear this. Media, confused, asks Kong if he understands what it means to be star class. She wonders if she heard him correctly, stating that while the elders were furious, this top cadet decision was determined directly by the space itself. Kong pauses for a moment and replies that, despite everything, he still doesn't like it, further shocking both Media and Sieg. Returning to the present, Media asks Sieg if he is upset that Kong took the top spot instead of his granddaughter, as Sieg saw the footage himself. Sieg replies that there is nothing more foolish than questioning the judgment of the subspace imbued with the will of the founding hero. and since the academy chose Kong as the top cadet, Sieg and the others simply followed that decision. Siegfried thought to himself that if Kang's skills were outstanding, he would have understood. If Kang's physical abilities were exceptional, Sieg would have accepted it. And if Kang's experience were remarkable, he would have nodded in agreement. However, the young boy's movements seemed to embody a concept, the very swordsmanship Sieg had pursued his entire life. Yet, the unsettling feeling Sieg experienced when he unlocked the boy's blocked meridians lingered. A boy who had never undergone physical training, with a soft and unconditioned body, seemed to possess something that should not have been contained within him. Sieg couldn't believe that at his age, he still had such a competitive spirit, especially towards a boy the same age as his granddaughter. The scene shifts to Kong looking at the class board. Kong had been admitted to Wolf class, and our boy thinks it was the best compromise Kong could have made. The scene then transitions to the headmaster's office, where media informs Kong that he will be going to the upper class. However, Kong requests that he be placed in Tiger class instead. The frustrated headmaster states that the top cadet cannot be sent to Tiger class. Our boy replies, "In a school that prides itself on equality, why can't Kong?" The headmaster responds, "Even so, Tiger class is off limits." Instead, media offers to keep Kang's powers a secret. In her mind, media thinks that if she sends Kong to Tiger class, the elders will make an even bigger fuss. Kong gets confused seeing media's reaction. Our boy thinks the plan was to quietly complete his studies in a lower class, rather than get caught up in the power struggles of the upper ranks. At least, this much is still within the expected range. As Kong enters the classroom, he is stunned by both the class and the students. The students glance at our boy as he enters, but when they see Kang's green name tag, they start to ignore him and return to chatting. As our boy takes his seat, Kong is surprised that he was completely ignored, meaning the headmaster managed to keep everything under wraps. Kong thinks that this might actually be a good thing. At that moment, a red-haired girl approaches Kong. She thanks him for saving her back then, leaving Kong speechless. The red-haired girl then reminds Kong about the subspace incident. Hearing this, Kong wonders why she is using formal language when they are the same age. Our boy tells the girl that there is no need to thank him, as anyone would have done the same in that situation. The red-haired girl replies, "That's not true." In his mind, our boy thinks it seemed like Kong saved her, but in reality, Kong was just trying to survive. Our boy points out that they haven't introduced themselves yet, so Kong introduces himself first. The red-haired girl then states her name is Chloe. Our boy responds by saying, "It's nice to meet you, Chloe." Kong hadn't expected them to be in the same class. Internally, our boy wonders who Chloe is, as he had played through most of the game but doesn't recognize this character. As far as our boy knows, the main story in the later stages focuses on the battle with the demon tribe, so it's unexpected to see a new character appearing at this time. Finally, our boy realizes that Chloe, like him, might just be a background character. Kong asks Chloe if she can keep what happened during the exam a secret. Chloe replies, "Of course." Just as Chloe was about to say something else to our boy, the teacher enters the classroom and instructs the students to take their seats. Our boy tells Chloe they can talk later after class, and she agrees. The teacher's name is Lee Wonbin, and he introduces himself as the instructor of Wolf class. First, Lee congratulates all the students on their admission to the academy, adding that each of them was chosen to be here, inheriting the will of the founding hero, Valor Joaquin. He encourages the students to be proud of this. Since it's the first day, Lee announces they will begin with some simple physical training. He instructs the students to change into their training clothes and gather at the training ground within 30 minutes. One of the students asks about the training course. Lee explains that it's a simple routine: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats, followed by 10 laps around the training ground. Lee then asks if there are any questions, and if not, the students should change and gather at the training ground. The students shout, "Yes, sir." As they begin leaving the class, our boy, sitting alone, wonders if this training is meant to turn cadets into soldiers. Kong approaches the instructor, and Lee asks, "What is it?" Kong wonders why Instructor Lee knows his name, but our boy realizes that's not important right now. What matters is finding a way to avoid this tedious training. Our boy tells Lee that he's feeling a little unwell. Hearing this, Instructor Lee responds, For the top cadet, I don't think this training will help you feel better. How about training with the star class on your first day? He adds that the headmaster has given our boy permission to attend all classes. Kong feels frustrated hearing this, as media had promised to keep his status as the top cadet a secret. Kong quickly tells instructor Lee that it's not about being sick, he just needs to use the restroom urgently. Our boy, feeling a little sore, reflects on how the instructor has scheduled the training perfectly. Hearing this, instructor Lee says, as expected from the top cadet, and tells Kong he will see him at the training ground. Kong replies, yes. The scene then shifts to the training ground, where our boy feels exhausted from all the running. All the other students are ahead of Kong, leaving him behind, running at his best pace. As Kong continues doing his best, Chloe approaches him and asks if the training is difficult for him, noticing that he looks unwell. Our boy replies, no, it's okay. Chloe then asks what lap Kong is on. He replies that he's on his 5th lap. Curious, our boy asks Chloe about her lap count, as it seemed like she was far behind. Chloe tells Kong that she's on her 9th lap, leaving him stunned. Chloe happily begins to cheer for Kong, encouraging our boy to do his best as she quickly dashes to the front. Kong can't believe what he just witnessed. The scene shifts to Kang's room, where our boy is lying on his bed, having only been drinking water. Frustrated, Kong states that he's hungry. It has now been 1 week since our boy joined the academy, and he has encountered an unexpected problem. The scene moves to the cafeteria, where Kong is ordering his food, but our boy is shocked to see a meal ticket box in front of him, realizing that the food is not free. Kong decides to buy a ticket for his meal, but is further shocked to see the prices. The meal he wants costs 50,000 won. Kong is stunned by how expensive the academy's cafeteria is. Back in his room, our boy finishes the last bottle of water. In frustration, Kong throws the empty bottle at the wall, angry and hungry, unable to believe how high the prices are in the academy's cafeteria. Nearly out of the living expenses his parents gave him, Kong thinks to himself that he's really an idiot for not taking advantage of the situation when he had the chance. For days now, our boy has been surviving on the cheapest water from the campus store. A status window appears in front of Kong, stating that our boy's physical stats have increased to 12, and that the blessing is activated only for swords of specific lengths and widths. Just thinking about it makes the blessing window pop up again for Kong. Our boy stands up and looks at himself in the mirror, stating that it wasn't a waste of time, as Kong has gained a lot of muscle. Our boy wonders if the blessing of the sword god cleared Kang's blood vessels. At this rate, Kong thinks it's almost like an evolution. However, the blessing of the sword god still hasn't fully expanded. If Kong continues improving step by step, our boy might be able to handle short swords soon. Looking at the Sashimi sword, our boy recalls being terrified of even holding a sword during the entrance ceremony. But now, if Kong isn't holding one, his hands itch. Perhaps it's the influence of the blessing. Our boy wonders why he feels so proud. Suddenly, Kong hears a knock on his door. He asks, "Who is it?" And upon opening the door, is surprised to see Chloe. He wonders why she is here. Chloe, shyly, asks if she has perhaps disturbed Kang's rest. Our boy replies that he was just lying down and asks Chloe what's the matter. Chloe shyly tells Kong that she hasn't seen him in the campus cafeteria all week, so she was worried that our boy might not be feeling well. Our boy explains that he usually doesn't eat food made by others, though in his mind, Kong admits that he absolutely loves food made by others. Kong reassures Chloe not to worry. Chloe then suggests that if Kong is okay with it, she was thinking of buying some ingredients from the campus store so they could cook dinner together. Without hesitation, Kong tells Chloe, "Let's go," surprising her. Our boy quickly adds that he's good at cooking and will handle it. Chloe calls after Kong, but he doesn't stop, stating that her dorm is across the street, right? Chloe agrees and says, "Let's go together." The scene then shifts to Chloe's dorm, where she absolutely loves Kang's cooking. Our boy is glad that Chloe enjoys his food. Chloe is impressed, noting that she only boiled fish and never expected to taste cooking like this. Kong then says he'll check the fridge to see if he can make something else as well. As our boy opens the fridge, he finds it filled with fish. Kong comments that Chloe must really like fish. She replies that she does, as she is from a seaside area. Kong responds that's great because our boy specializes in fish dishes. He thinks to himself that this is fortunate, as he really wanted to cook anyway. However, the only problem is the blessing of the sword god. Kong then asks Chloe if she has a longer knife. Chloe asks if he means a long sword. Our boy replies affirmatively, but Chloe knows that his weapon is the sashimi sword, which makes it feel a bit awkward to use a knife like that. Chloe quickly goes to retrieve a white sword and asks Kong if it's suitable. Shocked and confused, Kong tells Chloe that it's fine and that he will just use the kitchen knife instead. Kong thinks that it can't be helped. As he touches the kitchen knife, the blessing of the sword god activates, and our boy intends to finish the dish in under 30 seconds, which is the limit for the blessing of painlessness. Remarkably, in just 21 seconds, our boy completes the dish. Chloe is impressed by Kang's skills, while our boy thinks to himself that it felt like a masterpiece. Chloe asks our boy how he cooks so well. Kong replies that he used to work part-time at a Japanese restaurant. This is the first time Chloe has heard about a part-time job. Noticing her expression, our boy asks if she doesn't know about part-time work. Chloe apologizes to Kong, but he assures her that there is no need to apologize. In his mind, our boy reflects on the disparity in their backgrounds. Nevertheless, Kong states that he is glad Chloe enjoyed the meal. Chloe then tells our boy that since he prepared the meal, she will handle the dishes. Kong thanks her and says he will leave the dishes to her. He then goes to look at the moon, feeling full and satisfied. However, Kong notices that Chloe has gotten water all over her uniform. Observing her, our boy wonders if Chloe has ever washed dishes before. At that moment, Kong notices a diary on Chloe's desk. Inside, he sees that it's written that someone helped her during the class placement test today, and she feels she must repay him. Kong finds Chloe's handwriting and the stickers she used to be cute, but as the wind blows, the diary pages turn to another entry. Inside the diary, it is written that the person who saved Chloe turns out to be in her class as well, but she can't bring herself to talk to him. Reading this, our boy finds Chloe to be really cute, and now he understands the reason why she couldn't approach him. Curious, Kong goes to read more, but as he turns to the next page, he is shocked to see, "I love him," written on every page. At that moment, Chloe sees Kong with her diary, and a plate drops from her hand, causing our boy to turn around and notice her. With a serious tone, Chloe asks Kong if he saw what was written in the diary. Heroic families gain honor by defeating monsters, receiving the admiration of society, and solidifying their positions. However, within these stagnant institutions, there are always vested interests that exploit the weak under the guise of authority. When even public authorities are powerless to condemn them, one heroic family steps forward to take on the role of shadows. The name of that family is Auditora de Sicilia, a family that operates in the shadows while aiming for the light, combining order maintenance with assassination. Those born into the Auditora family undergo mental conditioning before puberty, suppressing their emotions and enduring harsh training to become assassins. The age at which Chloe first saw blood was 15. We then see an old man telling Chloe not to deny her talents as an assassin, something she had heard even before reaching adulthood. Chloe accepted this. The constant training distorted her mentality, casting a dark shadow deep within her heart. By the time her sense of self was worn away, only traces of emotion remained. Chloe reached the age to enroll in the academy, specifically the Awakens Academy, where classes are assigned based on individual skill. Although each member of the Auditora family, aiming for the shadows, clearly possessed abilities above the dragon class, they were assigned to the common class due to family tradition and the agreement between the family and the academy. We see the old man telling Chloe to stay out of sight. However, even the 3 years of Chloe's youth were stripped away by the family, taking away all personal freedom as she faced the fate of becoming an assassin. Chloe did not utter a word. She merely accepted her circumstances, thinking that nothing would change either way. She thought so until she met a certain male student during the subspace battle royale. Even though death within the space isn't real, it would be Chloe's first time experiencing death. She didn't cower in fear. Rather, she faced death calmly, confronting her predetermined fate. She had long since ceased her futile struggles. That was how Chloe learned to live, and that was how she had always lived, believing that nothing would change either way, or so it had been. but it felt as though the sun had broken through the dark clouds in the midst of a storm of frost. Chloe felt something, a sword wielded by one's own will, a sword wielded to protect someone. Chloe was the reason why that male student wielded his knife. During her childhood, she remembered the fairy tale she had secretly hidden by her bedside. It was about a princess trapped in a castle and a prince's love, a story that revolved around a prince appearing and saving people. Chloe's face turned red as an unknown, hazy feeling arose within her. She had only one thought, that this was love. We return to the present, where Kong is completely shocked to see Chloe surrounded by her aura. Kong wonders what went wrong. He thinks to himself about when he first glimpsed Chloe's innocence, or was it when he foolishly followed along just for a meal? He then tries to change the topic by asking Chloe if the moon isn't beautiful. Chloe doesn't say anything. Kong thanks Chloe for the delicious dinner and states that he will leave for today, promising to see her tomorrow. Then Chloe asked our boy if he had seen what was written in the diary. Hearing Chloe's tone, our boy was surprised. In his mind, Kong wondered if Chloe had eyes in the back of her head. How had she seen him? On top of that, the informal language that Kong insisted Chloe should change made her seem like a completely different person at that moment. Our boy told Chloe that he hadn't seen anything. Chloe insisted that he was lying, prompting Kong to admit that, yes, he had seen it. Chloe fell silent again and then began to take out her sword, which shocked our boy. He didn't understand what was happening. Looking out the window, he realized they were on the 4th floor, and if he jumped from there, he would get injured. Moreover, there was only one exit. Frustrated, our boy thought that he was trapped here. Then Kong sensed something and noticed that Chloe looked like a completely different person. Her sword was filled with aura as well. Our boy thought that Chloe was really coming at him. He wondered if she was unconscious. He seemed to have a rough idea about such things, noting her motionless pupils and dull red eyes that felt lifeless. Now our boy is sure that Chloe is a Yandere. Furthermore, the fierce, energetic attitude that can change in an instant leads Kong to believe that Chloe might have a split personality. With her Yandere characteristics already overwhelming, the possibility of a split personality adds to his concern. Our boy thinks that opening the diary might have triggered this personality change. He considers this dangerous, as Chloe will probably chase him until he dies. Kong needs to establish a foothold here to ensure his safety. However, he is stunned to realize that Chloe's killing intent is currently stronger than that of the Mao brothers. He cannot help but remark that academy life is truly tough. As our boy calms down, he thinks that he first needs to get out of this situation. He begins to contemplate his options and remembers that he has 9 seconds left on his painlessness skill and that his sashimi knife is in his room. He recalls the knife he used earlier, but it is too far away. Our boy notices that Chloe is getting ready to strike. Kong looks around and sees a box cutter. However, Chloe charges at him with full force. With no choice, our boy grabs the box cutter, activating the blessing of the sword god. As Chloe approaches, our boy notes that her hair seems a little longer, and he expresses his intention to trim it just a bit. Then we see Chloe waking up in her bed. As she awakens, she wonders where Kong has gone, recalling that he was looking out the window while she was doing the dishes. She remembers sneaking a glance at him and then realizes that her katana is missing. Fortunately, she spots her katana beside her bed and feels a sense of relief upon seeing it. Chloe notes that she often loses consciousness when handling a katana. She then recalls the old man praising her, but she has no clear memory of what transpired. The old man reassures her, telling her not to worry about it and that she should embrace her talents as an assassin. Chloe begins to feel embarrassed, her face flushing red as she wonders if she did something strange while unconscious. Spotting the box cutter on the floor, she questions what it is doing there. Upon further reflection, Chloe notices that her hair appears to be shorter and considers that the box cutter may have been used to cut it. Finally, she sees that Kong has tidied up, and when she notices her cut hair in the basket, she is filled with happiness, exclaiming that Kong is truly kind. Chloe thinks that she should write this in her diary before she forgets. The scene shifts outside, where our boy, completely exhausted, reflects on how he managed to get through that situation somehow. He sits on a bench, pondering the deal with Chloe. Generally, the The purpose of swordsmanship is to take down an opponent with a single strike. However, the sword Chloe wields relentlessly targets only vital points, almost as if it is specialized for ambushes, posing a significant threat to his life. In a moment of panic, Kong quickly swings his hand. Fortunately, because the knife is short, he only manages to cut her hair. Our boy quickly cleans up, ensuring there shouldn't be any further remarks. Everything seems fine to Kong as he contemplates that achieving stability, safety, and security is not easy. He has heard people say that being ordinary is the hardest path, but this situation is far beyond that. In fact, when our boy was thrown into this game, he had no ambitions. For someone like him, who has reigned at the pinnacle with a single sashimi knife, abandoning romance was not an easy choice. However, everyone has their assigned role. The blessing of miracles is the name of the game, and the unique blessing of the protagonist of this sword, whom Kong has yet to encounter, is accompanied by the blessing of valor, Awakens. Our boy remembers that there are only 2 legendary blessings in the game. The contents of the blessings are intuitive. Please save the world from the Demon King. And the protagonist is chosen by both the Holy Sword and the Demon Sword, Balong. In contrast, our boy can only use sashimi knives. Moreover, since entering the academy, the continuous encounters with these unrealistic figures and situations have made our boy forget his goal. Kong thinks that he has stopped for various reasons. Come to think of it, is there not even a single ordinary person in this world? Our boy has a vague understanding of the important characters in the game, but his comprehension of this world itself is still quite lacking. It has been just over a week since our boy entered the academy, and according to the story, it is about time the main character's blessing has activated, as they are just now completing the enrollment process. This means the story of the game is finally about to truly start. Kong seems to know the general plot, but our boy hasn't seen the ending. Of course, knowing the official story up to the midpoint is definitely an advantage. Whatever happens, Kong decides to follow the official route. If everything gets mixed up, it will only lead to wasting whatever merits remain. If Kang's memory serves him right, the story darkens significantly from the second semester of the 3rd year, sensing the birth of a hero and the demon race, which will unify their forces under demon lords and threaten the academy. The conflict between demons and humanity will eventually escalate into a world war, thus following a typical cliché fantasy plot. Our boy, who sought the charm of a youthful life he never experienced in his teenage years, cannot believe that all the characters died, prompting Kong to delete the game with that thought in mind. What's even more chilling is that this terrible war occurs in this world, and our boy wonders if he will die in the war too. However, our boy realizes that there are still nearly 3 years left. So now our boy needs a realistic goal more than ever. Kong decides to get stronger and survive. He further reflects that most mass-produced game narratives tend to have a happy ending. This world will likely be saved by the protagonist as well. However, our boy needs power to protect himself. He cannot live with the fate of potentially dying at any moment due to the war. Therefore, Kong should train himself to survive without drawing too much attention. If Kong stands out, there is a chance our boy will have to fight the demon army, which is something our boy intends to avoid. Additionally, Kong needs to be cautious with using the blessing of painlessness, as our boy picked up the sashimi knife out of necessity, but the burden on Kang's body is too great. Then a status window opens up, and Kong sees that his performance is definitely impressive, but it appears there is a lot of new information. Physical rank, mental rank, weapon rank. The numbers there seem to represent levels of ranks, and this detailed information is something our boy cannot understand as Kong clicks on it. A notification appeared, stating that access is denied due to unmet conditions. Our boy thinks that this is not important right now, adding yet another question to the list of mysteries surrounding his abilities. However, the most pressing concern at the moment is physical training, and our boy needs a new weapon as well. Kong cannot rely solely on the blessing of painlessness for 30 seconds indefinitely. He also needs to train with swords that do not meet the conditions for the sword god's blessing. Fortunately, next month, there will be a practical combat training session replacing the midterm exams, and the reward for this training is the Murasame, a B-class weapon. If our boy can handle the Murasame skillfully, it will be sufficient for graduation. Its specifications do not meet the activation conditions for the sword god's blessing, so it won't impose a burden as a primary weapon. Kong realizes that there is more to do than he initially thought. At that moment, Abel approaches from behind and tells Kong that it is her spot. Our boy is shocked to see her. Frustrated, Abel insists that Kong move a bit. As our boy shifts aside, he can't help but think that Abel looks unreal, no matter how he sees her. Our boy ends up staring at Abel without realizing it. Abel tells Kong that there is no need for him to leave. He just needs to move a little bit. As Abel sits down, our boy thinks that it's her spot, but aren't the benches public property? Kong considers that this might be due to the class system. He thinks that if he gets involved with the heroine, the main story will definitely become complicated, and Kong decides to avoid it, even if it becomes uncomfortable. On the other hand, Kong finds Abel to be truly beautiful. Abel informs Kong that this is where the stars are most visible, which startles our boy. Kong looks at Abel, smiling, and wonders if this is really Abel, the granddaughter of the sword saint he knows. The protagonist was also a difficult character to approach at the beginning. Then Abel asks our boy if his weapon is also a sword. Kong asks Abel how she knows that. Abel replies that her grandfather told her, and she also heard that swordmasters have a different look in their eyes. Kong seems flustered and confused. Then Abel asks our boy if he wants to try holding her sword. Kong remarks that the sword doesn't feel heavy at all. However, he is surprised to see Abel sulking. Kong thinks that Abel is difficult to get used to and wonders if this is really the Abel he knows. Then Abel asks our boy if he doesn't recognize her.